Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. So there was a lot of buzz around bold.new. I'm sure many of you might have seen it. A lot of influencers posting videos on bold.new, calling it as replacement for the software engineers. Bold.new is going to replace DevOps engineers, developers. So I thought, let me give it a try. Of course, some of the videos were very scary because it was able to develop a full stack application, run the full stack application, deploy it through the bold.new itself. So I thought how it is going to perform in the world of DevOps. I asked bold.new to set up an intermediate level DevOps project, not too simple, at the same time, not too difficult. I played with it for 6 to 7 hours. I provided it different prompts. In this video, I'll share my honest feedback. I'm going to show you if bold.new is in fact a hero or another AI product that is overhyped by the influencers. Let's get started. So, what is a project that I tried with bold.new? So, I asked bold.new to set up a AWS environment, and within the AWS environment, it has to create a virtual private cloud along with all of its components like subnet, route table, security groups. And once it creates the VPC, within the VPC, it has to set up EKS cluster, basically a Kubernetes cluster that is provided by AWS. And one catch is that everything has to be done using Terraform. So it has to set up a project with HCL files, and these HCL files, when executed, should set up a VPC, and within the VPC, it has to create a Kubernetes cluster. Like I mentioned, it's not too easy task. At the same time, it's not a very difficult task as well. Now, one reason why bold.new has become so popular, why the videos were very scary, because it can set up the complete project. Unlike ChatGPT, where you get a file of code or multiple lines of code, it can actually set up your project that you do in Visual Studio Code or any of the IDE environments. In fact, I was able to set up that project through bold.new. You can see here EKS Terraform project where I was able to set up the project, and in fact, I was also able to create the EKS cluster, as you can see here. But is it really worth? How much time did it take? Did it take less time when compared to an average DevOps engineer? Or if I'm using online resources like GitHub or any other platforms, did it take less time? How does it perform when compared to GitHub, Copilot, or Cursor AI? Let's see all of it. So to start with, let's give it a prompt and ask it, create a Terraform project which implements a VPC on AWS and deploys a EKS cluster in it. So, okay, it started thinking, and within a couple of minutes, so bold.new is actually very fast. One thing that I like about it. So what does it say? It says, I apologize, but I cannot help with creating a Terraform project. So it says it cannot execute the project. When it comes to anything in development, like a Python Flask application or anything else, it can actually deploy the project as well. But it says when it comes to Terraform, it cannot deploy the project. So let me say, it's fine. Can you share the code for the project. So let it only give the complete code that I can put in my Visual Studio Code and I can run it from my laptop. One thing, it cannot do everything that it does with respect to development, where it can deploy the application, it can configure the required environment. In the world of DevOps, for certain activities, it cannot set up the complete project. Cool. So you can see here that it has set up everything in the modular approach. So good. First thing is that I did not mention in the prompt that it has to use the modular approach, but still it went for the modular approach, which is quite good. And I can also export this project. I can download it and I can view it from my Visual Studio Code. But the advantage that you get here is you can interact with bold.new to your left side, and you can ask it to modify something. You can provide additional prompts. But let's see if this project is worth what it shared. So in the modules, we have a EKS module, and it also provided the VPC module. One thing that I wanted to share, when I tried it initially, it did not provide the VPC thing, even though I asked it to set up a VPC. But because I'm trying it one more time, probably it refreshed its memory and now it provided VPC related code as well. Good, it can refresh the memory. Let's see the VPC related code. So in the main.tf, quite good. It actually covered a lot of VPC components. I can see AWS VPC, then I can see the subnet that it has created, where I can also ask Bolt to explain the code, but it's self-explanatory. So it created a private subnet, then it created public subnet, it created internet gateway, EIP, NAT gateway, route table. So, and it also associated the route table. Perfect. So, I mean, it associated the routes with the route table. So I think from VPC point of view, which is a very common task by the DevOps engineers, I think it gets the full marks. Now let's go and see with respect to EKS. So in EKS, first it created the IAM role. Okay, quite good. And then it attached the policy to the IAM role. Fine. This is again the policy attachment. And then it said, okay, these are the EKS node groups. Looks good again. Previously, when I tried, it also did not create the EKS node groups. I had to explicitly ask it to add the code for EKS nodes. Looks like, again, it refreshed its memory. Anyways, so it created the EKS nodes, and this is the EKS cluster. So the var cluster name, it has taken the inputs. So it also created the variables.tf, and it tried to put everything in the variablized format. Let's see the variables. So one is the cluster name, one is the cluster version, VPC. Perfect. Now, when you actually download it and when you try to execute this project, does this project work? Let's see. So let's download this project. Okay, it got downloaded, and let's unzip. So this is the project. I unzipped it. It's in the folder called project 2. Let me go to my terminal and let me just mkdir. I'll just create a folder, or I'll just move that from the downloads, project 2. Okay, project -2 to here. CD project 2. Got it. Okay. Now let's run this and see if it can actually create a VPC and EKS cluster. So Terraform init, let's see if the project can be initialized. Cool. So EKS in the EKS modules, VPC from the VPC modules. And another good thing, it is using the latest version of the AWS provider. Very rare that I see from the AI pair programmers, or very less that I see from the AI assistants using the latest version. So it is using the latest version, which is quite good. It just takes a couple of minutes for the initialization. Let's wait. And if we go back while the initialization takes place, one thing that we can see, like even with the overview, it did not create S3 bucket or DynamoDB, and it did not set up the locking, state locking of S3 buckets and all. So we can just come here and we can just ask it, can you enhance the project by implementing S3 bucket as backend? So let's see if it can write to the project. Cool. So it it not only added S3 bucket, but it also implemented state locking using DynamoDB. Amazing, right? So now if I go back, I have the backend, and within the backend, cool, it tries to create S3 bucket. It updated the S3 bucket configuration in the AWS provider, and it also implemented DynamoDB. Great. Okay, now the project initialization is successful. Now let's go here and let's try to see if the Terraform plan works. So when I say Terraform plan, now this is the real test, right? This is where we are actually validating the project and seeing if it works. Perfect. So everything that is written looks good. The Terraform validation and the Terraform plan tells us that, okay, I can create all the VPC related configuration for you, and I can also create the EKS cluster for you. So now let's run Terraform apply. So we are doing everything live, right? So I'll just say yes. So we are doing everything live. Only thing, in your case, it might not be able to do it for the first time because I have already trained it with few prompts. I have been using it for last 6 to 7 hours, right? Initially, it could not set up the EKS project. Then I gave it few suggestions, and I also provided it few prompts like this is how you can create S3 bucket, or probably you can implement state locking. That's why now when I asked it about S3 backend, it also added state locking using DynamoDB. So it refreshed its memory. It takes your inputs, and if anything is not available with it, it stores that in the local memory. Sounds good. The EKS project is actually getting created. Okay, so approximately after 7 to 8 minutes, it said the EKS cluster creation is complete. And it also said that it assigned the node groups and everything is created within the VPC. Let's see if it actually did it. So I have my AWS environment here. So this is my AWS account. And so we are in the US West 2 region, the region that bold.new set up uh, through the Terraform. I mean, the components are set up in US West 2. So this is the one. The VPC is my EKS cluster VPC. And Within the VPC, it created the private subnet, it created the public subnet, route tables are created, and internet gateway is also associated. And you can also see a NAT gateway is associated with individual private subnet. So a perfect VPC configuration. And now let's head to the EKS. Okay. So when I move to EKS, okay, it used a very old version of Kubernetes, but that's okay. Probably I can just tell it that the new version of Kubernetes is 1.30. It might create or it might not create because of some configuration issues. But for Kubernetes 1.27, the cluster is created. And if I go to the compute, a node group is also associated with it. Is it a regular node group? Yeah. So on demand, it did not use the spot instances. It used the on demand nodes, which is quite good. The EC2 instances with T3 medium are created. And if I go to the health checks, cool, nothing scary about the health checks part. And I can also get the Kubernetes configuration and use it on my local machine. So it actually looks great. In the pods, all the pods are also in the running state. If I go to this, yeah, so there are no events. All the events are also positive. So overall, what is our assessment? So bold.new was able to execute this intermediate level DevOps assignment. Now, is it something scary? I would say not very scary because we all know we are going to head somewhere towards this. One thing is bold.new is not totally free, but that's not the point, right? Whether it's a free thing or whether it's a paid thing, end of the day, uh, what you need to look at is AI progressing in a way that it is going to replace engineers? In that way, it's not too scary because this particular task that I have done, an average DevOps engineer could do this in maybe 2 to 3 hours. Because if I just go to GitHub and if I just search for Terraform EKS, right? So there is enough information on GitHub as well, where there are a lot of projects. If I go to those projects and I can actually implement EKS cluster by taking some time out, by going through the documentation. Bold.new has made things little easier for us. Now, again, another reason why you don't have to be very scary about it, because going ahead, you will find this task as an easy task. If AI does not exist, this is an intermediate level task. Now that AI is helping us do this activity, you can consider this as an easy task. Now, instead of focusing on this particular thing, you will spend your time on doing something more efficient. And what are the alternatives? Like Abhishek, I cannot go for the paid version. Today, you can also do this task using GitHub Copilot, right? But you need to provide it more prompts when compared to bold.new, or you can also use cursor.ai, cursor AI. And even using this, you can actually implement these tasks. To be very honest, bold.new has done a very good job. Initially, when I started to think about it or when I actually wanted to use it, I started with a negative impression. I thought, it might not do even this intermediate level task. But with some training, it did not do it for the first time. With some training, I spent like 4 to 5 hours, and now it has its memory updated, refreshed with this particular task. And I'm pretty sure if I'm going to ask it to create any other AWS resources, it is going to perform really well. So, yeah, overall, start using these kind of tools. That is what I want to tell you in this video. You might not go for paid versions, and I won't recommend it at this point as well. you can actually go for the extensions like GitHub Copilot, which Microsoft has recently made it free. I also made video on GitHub Copilot and showed how to create Terraform projects, how to create shell script related projects. Don't be too adamant and don't try to think that, okay, I don't want to use it, or AI is not going to come any close. I think in 2025 and going ahead, we all have to change that approach. AI is progressing really fast. It's time that we adopt AI. It's time we start using AI and stand apart, or rank ahead when compared to other people who don't use AI. It's all about how do you use AI, how do you write better applications, how do you use AI pair programming, how are you going to implement AI ops, everything that I'm doing these days, I am actually using AI to make my task more efficient, or I'm trying to do the task much faster. And that is where my next playlist is going to be on AI ops. You're going to be really surprised how AI ops will help organizations when I do this playlist. I'm going to do some practical real time examples as well. So that's all for the video today. Let me know in the comment section what do you feel about these kind of tools. Bold.new is just one example. There are going to be more of such tools which are going to implement intermediate or uh, mid-level DevOps related tasks. Don't worry about it. Use it and become a better DevOps engineer or cloud engineer. See you all in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.